What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot to get into in the world of volleyball, such as UCLA and Long Beach State. Instant classic between those two teams. Can they play a few more rounds before their conference play and the National Collegiate Tournament? Also, how about USC finally picking up a top 10 win as they knocked off the Anteaters? Did they take two from the Anteaters, or was it just the one? Also had a lot of upsets happening as the Masters College, an NAIA school, swept CSUN. We also had Lincoln Memorial taking down Princeton. Sacred Heart took down Princeton. Queens even upset Purdue Fort Wayne for the first ever ranked win of its team's tenure. Also, the AVP schedule for 2024 has been released, and we can't forget about Pro Volleyball Federation as the Vegas Thrill won a thriller against the Omaha Supernovas in their debut match. Hand me a volleyball, set up the net, because I'm about to serve up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday evening, Monday afternoon, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have made your way into episode 233 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on Spreaker. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on several different social media platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter, at IE Sports Radio. Also, we have a Facebook page for those that still use that platform. All you just have to do is type in the word IE, then Sports, then Radio, in the search bar, like us, and then that's how you're able to follow us on Facebook. We also have a website, iesportsradio.com, for all of your latest sports news, our pages dedicated to each podcast, such as Set Point, our Hall of Fame, our Fans of the Month, our merchandise shop, and our blog. For the last 9 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports days around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout to our sponsors, Plant Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Plant Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, it's low in sugar and high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on. All you have to do is visit planetjerky.net and place your order. In addition, some prices are slashed in regards to buying their products, and if you buy $50 or more of an order, you will get shipping for free. Let's get a huge shout to our sponsor, Plant Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. Our second sponsor is Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations, and you're looking for that extra special touch. Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or friend, and you want to add their smile to when they receive it. If that's the case, then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts is where you need to go. You bring the deal, and we'll bring the seal. Once again, a huge shout to Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. And the way you can follow Set Point on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at set_point.ie, and on Instagram, at set_point.iesr for all of the interviews and whatnot. And you can follow me, Teran, on Twitter, at Teran Rodriguez1, formerly known as X. And let's get started. So, the Super Bowl happened this past Sunday, but we're not talking about that. We're going to be talking some NCAA men's volleyball, and we have a lot to go over, as there was basically a plethora of upsets. We had a plethora of great matches. I attended 3 matches this past week, 2 of which were by the same team. So let's get started. So let's get the ones that were out of the way that are also important, but weren't as notable in terms of upsets. But shout out to the chat room, Jen B, Ralph Calise, Patty Bax, and Larry B for all tuning in. I appreciate you all. All right, so the big action started on Tuesday when MIVA play kicked off. So conference play is already underway, and Loyola Chicago and Purdue Fort Wayne faced one another. The Ramblers were number 13. Mastodons were number 20 after their big win over Penn State, but Loyola basically swept Purdue Fort Wayne on the road. Now, my segue for this one is this. I'm not ultimately surprised just because Loyola kind of needed this win. They were already 0-1, and basically if they had lost again, there would have been no coming back coming from 0-2, especially when you have another big match against Ohio State on the horizon that same week. So it was a big win for Loyola. Purdue Fort Wayne kind of came back down to earth, but that's not of any fault of their own. It's also a big credit that Loyola was able to have such a tough schedule. Then we jump to Wednesday. Speaking of said Ohio State, they too had a big week as they swept Lewis on the road. My takeaway for Ohio State is this. This is not ultimately surprising. I know Ohio State and Lewis were both undefeated in MIVA play going into this match, but the Buckeyes needed this one, and this had trap game written all over it. They knew they could not look ahead, and they couldn't look past Lewis, just because Lewis is actually having a solid season. My guest from Set Point Extra Points, Alex Knight, even said that Lewis was probably one of their toughest matches. Him or John Spraw. They said Lewis is one of their tougher matches, especially on the road. So this just goes to show how tough the MIVA can really be. So now let's get on into some of the big time upsets. Big time matches. So I went to this match on Wednesday at the beautiful campus of UC Irvine of the Bren Event Center. USC took on UC Irvine. It was quite the barn burner. USC took the first set. They just looked so crisp and so clean in that first set. They just looked like the team that I saw in Austin. They took it 25-19. UC Irvine was able to take the second set, but USC, they just kept finding ways to shoot themselves in the foot, whether it was by missed serves, errors, mistakes, that sort of thing. So UC Irvine took the second set 25-22. Then in set 3, this was the big set right here. So set 3, UC Irvine actually led 24-18. They basically were leading most of the set. But then USC scores 6 in a row to tie it up at 24-24 off of an ace from Kyle Paulson. Then they took the lead the following point, but they just could not convert on the set point. They even had an out-of-rotation call. They missed a bunch of serves, which could have given them the set, and they just could not stop Hilir Heno. As UC Irvine took that third set 30-28. Then in the fourth set, it was a back-and-forth set. It looked like UC Irvine was going to take it in 4, but then USC had an answer, trying to push it to 5. USC did not have one set point, but they kept themselves in the set multiple times. It took UC Irvine two set points, and they eventually took the fourth set 27-25 from a fitting kill from Hilir Heno. He led the way, 29 kills. He hit 568. He also had 7 digs, and his serve was also tough to corral. Max Grigoriev also had 17 kills. That is basically his left-hand man, and it's scary that UC Irvine now has their Robin to the Batman of Hilir Heno. UC Irvine hit 391, and this is the most interesting thing. USC hit 422 in the match, and they outblocked UC Irvine 11.5 to 8.5. And they outdug UC Irvine 40-29. But they still wound up losing. And USC, they had fewer service errors. They only had 13 service errors, but they missed the serves when it mattered most. And UC Irvine had 20 missed serves, but they were just serving tough. Their serving is tough as nails, as Jack Duker led the way with 21 kills, Dylan Klein had 14 kills, and Riley Hain had 11 kills. So the takeaway for USC is this. I at least wanted this one to go 5. I was thinking I'd like to see USC push this one to 5. Unfortunately, they just had too many mistakes, and Jack Duker said it best in my interview with him in set 3. If they don't have that out-of-rotation violation, or if they don't miss a bunch of serves, they maybe win that set, and maybe they're at least going 5, maybe even winning in 4. But USC did get a little revenge on the Anteaters. They took down the Anteaters at Galen Center on Saturday in 4 sets. But USC looked awful in the first set. USC got drubbed in that first set. They lost 25-12 in that first set. Then USC started to turn it around a little bit later in that second set. They were down a little bit early on in the second set, but then they rattled off 5 in a row. They went from being down 8-5 to now being up 9-8, and they never looked back. They took that second set 25-22. It looked like a little bit of a mirror reflection of the previous match. This time it was USC having the bad start and then bouncing back in set 2. Then in set 3, this is where it gets very interesting. So UCI was leading for the most part, but then it was late in the set. USC tied it up at 19-19. UC Irvine eventually goes up 21-19, and they go up 23-21. But USC, being that scrappy and resilient team, they rattled off 4 straight points, and unfortunately for UC Irvine, they hit the ball long. I want to say it was Halir Heno who hit that ball long, and what was looking like USC was going to lose that third set and go down 2-1, just like they did on Wednesday. They took that third set 25-23. Then in the fourth set, this was quite the crazy set. So USC just had all the momentum in the world. Heck, even Noah Roberts was giving them the spark. But Dylan Klein was putting down every kill he could possibly put down. But here's the crazy thing about UC Irvine. They didn't have Brett Sheward all of that fourth set. They put in Joe Carlos for that fourth set, which was kind of crazy if you ask me. Unfortunately, I couldn't catch up with David Niffen regarding that. But Joe Carlos did actually put in some work. He had a dump kill against Dylan Klein. I actually did cover Joe Carlos back in his high school days, but it wasn't enough. USC just steamrolled UC Irvine in set 4, 25-14, ending the match and getting their first top 10 win of the season. The Trojans were definitely due for a big breakout win, especially against a team that was ranked ahead of them. I want to say maybe Ball State was their biggest win beforehand, but Ball State and USC were right between the rankings when they were at that First Point Collegiate Challenge. USC was led by Dylan Klein, who had 17 kills. Riley Hain had 13 kills. An unsung hero for USC, Austin Stewart. He had 7 assists. He had 9 digs. There was even a rally where he basically took one in the man area, but it was all worth it just because USC won the point. It was a 30-second rally, and Austin Stewart definitely came up big in that moment for the Trojans. UC Irvine was led by Halir Heno, who had 16 kills. Max Grigoriev had 13 kills. My takeaway for USC is this. They needed this win in the worst way because it's a momentum booster going into conference play. However, something else that is needed to be said is that they actually struggled against the Big West. They were 1-3 going into that Saturday match against UC Irvine. And I told Jeff Nygaard that this is one of those instances where the Big West is stacked from top to bottom. And I told him back in Austin, and I'm not saying he didn't listen, but he kind of got a taste of what the Big West really had to offer. And winning this game over UC Irvine, or winning the match over UC Irvine, was so huge for his team. And for UC Irvine, my takeaway for them is this. This isn't really a terrible loss, but they could have prevented this. If they take that third set, maybe, hence the word maybe, they could be up 2-1 in a good position. At the very least, they could be going 5. But all in all, for UC Irvine, it was just a not-so-good loss for them. They still have a few more weeks to rewrite everything, rewrite their wrongs. They have 4 more MPSF teams on the horizon, and they're 3-3 against the MPSF. And it doesn't get easier for UC Irvine because they've got Stanford this week at Stanford. But Larry B says in the chat room, but those Anteaters are a very good team, and he was not pleased with how USC lost that first match. But for the sake of USC, I'm glad they were able to bounce back. And this is my first time covering USC volleyball as a member of the media, and it was pretty good. I liked it. So moving on to another Wednesday match, we had the top 5 match. Number 3 Hawaii hosting number 5 Stanford. Now this was a little bit anticlimactic, but unfortunately for Stanford, they did not have Will Rotman. It was a lower leg injury, and he did not make the trip out to Hawaii. That was a bit of a big blow for Stanford. But Stanford was able to overcome it, took the first set 25-21, but then Hawaii, they woke up the bear. Stanford, unfortunately, woke up the bear. Hawaii took that second set 25-15, and then the third set, it was back and forth. Stanford, I want to say, led 18-15, but then was outscored 10-4 in that third set, and Hawaii takes that third set 25-22, and then the fourth set, it was tight early on, but then Hawaii basically just hit the gas, and the fourth set was obviously one-sided, but it was closer than the final box score of that fourth set says. It just shows that Hawaii just turned on the gas late in the set, and they took that fourth set 25-12. Hawaii was led by Alakai Todd, who had 17 kills. Spiros Hakas had 15 kills. Chaz Galloway and Guilherme Voss both had 7 kills. Hawaii hit 346 while holding Stanford to 153. My takeaway for Hawaii is this. Their block game was also on point. They outblocked Stanford 11.5-4, and they only missed 10 serves. When you're missing fewer serves than the opposing team, which Stanford missed 15, you're doing something right. And they even had one more ace than Stanford. Stanford did not have one player in double digits in kills, but their offensive attack was balanced. Kevin Lamp and Moses Wagner both having 9 kills. Ethan Hill, 7 kills. Nathan Litsky and Nathaniel Gates both having 6 kills. But the takeaway for Stanford is this. They need Will Rotman back in the worst way. They were 1-2 following that match against Hawaii, and it didn't get any better because the second match against Hawaii, Stanford got swept. But here's the straw that broke the camel's back. Hawaii took that first set 27-25. It was an intense first set. Stanford did everything. They threw the farm at Hawaii. See what I did there? They threw the farm at Hawaii and tried to take that first set, but Hawaii was not having it. They took that first set, and that was the momentum boost that they needed because Hawaii basically rolled them in the second set. 25-7, not even close. Hawaii barely broke a sweat in that second set. And then the third set, Hawaii, it was pretty much all Hawaii. They took it 25-20. Stanford tried to put up a little bit of a fight, but again, this is where you really miss Will Rotman. Alex Rotman, Will's brother, had 10 kills to lead the Cardinal, but they only hit 146. Hawaii hit a blistering 594, as Spiros Hakas had 23 kills in one match. In a 3-set match, mind you. Spiros Hakas was him. He had over half the kills that Hawaii had as a team. Alakai Todd also had 9 kills. Hawaii, my takeaway for them is this. When you play at Simplify Arena, a.k.a. Stan Sheriff Center, you got to bring your A game. There was 9,226 in attendance, and the previous game was close to 9,000. As basically Hawaii along with Nebraska do it differently when it comes to volleyball. So all in all, it was a big win for the Rainbow Warriors. I know what everyone's going to say. Stanford isn't as good as Hawaii, but I will just say this. You got to get Will Rotman back healthy as possible, especially since you have UC Irvine coming to your house. And believe it or not, Hawaii and Stanford, the first match, actually only had 6,125. But this match basically was 1/3 more of the previous match. So all in all for Hawaii, it was a great weekend for them. And Stanford, they need to get Will Rotman back. There's no better way of saying it. Jumping to Thursday, we have Pepperdine taking on UC Santa Barbara. Number 12 Pepperdine taking on number 17 UC Santa Barbara. This was an interesting match, as the Gauchos took that first set 25-13. Pepperdine did bounce back big time because you cannot be on the road and get drubbed like that. It's not good for your momentum, but the Waves took that second set 25-22, and then they took the third set 25-23, just barely, as they led throughout. They never trailed in the second set, and they led throughout most of that third set. But thankfully for them, they were able to hold off the Gauchos. And then for Santa Barbara, they took the fourth set 25-20, as it was a little back and forth, but the Gauchos were able to hit the gas when they needed to. Well, then Pepperdine came up big in that fifth set. Didn't really trail all that much, and they took that fifth set quite nicely, 15-9. Huge win on the road for Pepperdine, as they had 4 different players with 10 or more kills, as Cole Rasick led the way with 12 kills. His teammates have been saying that his teammates on Pepperdine have been saying that Cole Rasick is a dog. Akin Akinwumi and Cole Kachansky both had 11 kills, and Ethan Watson had 10 kills. Pepperdine only hit 232 compared to Santa Barbara's 281, but the big thing for Santa Barbara was they did not have Jess Bianchi. Without Jess Bianchi, Santa Barbara just does not look like that same team. Reese Barnett led the way with 18 kills, Owenberg had 13 kills, and Ben Court had 12 kills. But you really need Jess Bianchi. They didn't have him in the loss against Damon. If you don't have Jess Bianchi, you better hope your other players step up. And the thing is, for Santa Barbara, they actually had him in the second match. But unfortunately, Pepperdine just swept him. The two met against one another in Malibu on Saturday. Pepperdine won the first set 25-16, and they won the second set 25-21. And then the third set, it was back and forth. However, the Waves were able to take that third set 25-23. The Waves were led by Cole Kachansky, who had 19 kills. Yeah, they went from balanced attack to give the ball to Cole, which is kind of beneficial. They also had Ethan Watson chipping in 9 kills. Akin Wumi had 8 kills, and Cole Rasick had 7 kills. Pepperdine hit 481, which was much better than their previous hitting percentage against UC Santa Barbara, while the Gauchos only hit 133. It was a block party for Pepperdine. Santa Barbara only had 2 blocks, 2 on the day. Pepperdine had 13.5. And even though Pepperdine missed a bunch of serves and only had 2 service aces compared to the Gauchos' 4, they made up for that in terms of its defense regarding blocks. And that it kind of also speaks to how Pepperdine hit 481. Santa Barbara's defense just was not there. As Jess Bianchi did come back for the Gauchos, he only had 5 kills. Patrick Kane, no, not the hockey player. Patrick Kane led the way with 6 kills for Santa Barbara. Only 29 kills as a team altogether for the Gauchos, as the Gauchos kind of showed their inexperience in that match. And this is kind of where you wish you had that Ryan Wilcox type of player. But unfortunately, they did not, and it was a loss for the Gauchos. And they have to figure things out sooner rather than later, just because Big West Conference play is getting closer and closer. And I'm starting to think that the loss to the win against UCLA was a little more than just Bianchi going off, because Jess Bianchi went off against UCLA in that win. And UCLA only lost by 2 in that 5th set. If they got lost by a little bit more, then I'd say UCLA just doesn't look like the same team. But UCLA does not look that as bad in that loss, just because the Gauchos had Jess Bianchi just going off in that match. Circling the wagons back to Friday in some MIVA play, we had Loyola Chicago, number 13 Loyola Chicago, downing number 6 Ohio State in 5. The Buckeyes took that first set quite convincingly, 25-18, but then the Ramblers took that second set 25-20 as they kind of returned the favor. Then in the third set, Ohio State took a big third set, 29-27, and I was thinking, is this going to be like the USC-UC Irvine match at the Brent Event Center? No. Loyola Chicago took that fourth set 25-14, and then the fifth set, Loyola took it 15-5. They never trailed after that third set. Once set 4 started, Loyola just went boom, 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 and they just took the match against Ohio State, and it's their biggest win of the season. Probably bigger than the Hawaii win, and that speaks to high volumes because that was a road match. This was at Gentile Arena in Chicago, as Parker Van Buren led the way for Loyola with 17 kills. Daniel Fabakovic had 11 kills. Jake Reed had 9 kills. My takeaway for Loyola is this. This was a much-needed win. I know I said that 0-3 would have kind of been not coming back from, but beating Ohio State and handing them their first MIVA loss was huge, because now you pull into a tie for first with Ohio State, and you basically have a leg up on them, and this could be the difference between hosting the Final Four in the MIVA tournament and being on the road in Columbus or maybe Muncie. So Ohio State, in my opinion, they missed a huge opportunity to possibly get a leg up on the Ramblers, as Jacob Pastor led the way with 17 kills. Shane Wetzel added 13 kills. Cole Young had 9 kills. Justin Howard, 8 kills. Thomas Poole had 11 digs. The problem with Ohio State is the defense, it wasn't terrible, but they kept spoon-feeding Loyola points. They missed 23 serves, and they allowed the Ramblers to hit 379. That's not a top 10 team, in my opinion. So Ohio State still has some questions they need to answer. And this just goes to show the toughness of the MIVA. And I think it's anyone's conference, just because we're going to be talking about a little bit of an MIVA matchup later on. But we have to go into the match and series of the week. Number 1 Long Beach State and number 4 UCLA. I was in attendance for the match at Long Beach. It was fun. Third most in attendance in Long Beach State men's volleyball history with 4,304. And Long Beach State took down UCLA in 4. UCLA won the first set 25-22, but Long Beach State had their chances. The only problem was they missed 8 serves in that first set. You can't do that against UCLA. I know UCLA misses a bunch of serves as a team, but you just can't give them 8 free points. You just can't. And then the second set, this one was also a wild one. Long Beach State led throughout most of the way. They were up 16-10, but then UCLA ties it up at 21-21, but Long Beach State gets the next point. And unfortunately for John Spraw, he ran out of substitutions. You'll get a handful of substitutions, and unfortunately John Spraw just did not have one. He was stuck without a setter in that second set, as Long Beach State took the second set 25-21. Then the third set happened. Long Beach State was down 24-22. Then they eventually wound up rattling off 5 out of the last 6 points as they took the third set 27-25. That was huge right there for the Beach. And eventually Long Beach State took the fourth set, never trailed. UCLA did battle back to tie it at 11-11, but UCLA just had a little less more in the tank as Long Beach State hit the gas. They won the fourth set 25-19, and Long Beach State was led by Sotiris Shapanis, who had 18 kills, Skylar Varga 15 kills, and Clark Godbold 12 kills. Mason Briggs was an unsung hero, 11 digs. And Long Beach State as a team hit 286. UCLA only hit 214 as Ido David led the way with 15 kills. Merrick McHenry had 11 kills. UCLA started Ethan Champlin at the outside hitter position. They went with Luka Kirchi and Hide Nakamura at the libero position. Ethan had 6 kills, along with 7 kills from Alex Knight, and Guy Guinness had 6 kills. So the takeaway for this match is this. This was electric. This is what NCAA men's volleyball was all about. And honestly, both these teams battled to the bitter end. And unfortunately for UCLA, the end to that second set was just so sucky for them. And then losing that third set was what really broke the camel's back. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. And again, this is another case where if they win that third set, or if a team wins that third set, they're up 2-1, and they're maybe feeling good about going into set 4. The only case is that Loyola had the answer against Ohio State, but for Long Beach State, they just had the answer after they won that third set, and that was crucial. But the rematch was a big thing right there, And this was one of those matches where I wish I'd gone to. I wish I wasn't torn between having to go to UCLA, Long Beach State, and UC Irvine, USC. As UCLA in round 2, they took down Long Beach State in 4. The first set, UCLA, they led 24-22. Long Beach State ties it up at 24 apiece, but they never had match point one time as UCLA took that first set 29-27. Second set, Long Beach State, same thing. They were down late in the set, tied up at 24 apiece, but unlike the previous set, they actually had a set point opportunity at 28-27, and they took advantage of it. They took that second set 29-27. Felt a little good going into set number 3, but then that's when UCLA hit the gas. Long Beach State actually led a little early in that third set. I want to say they led like 11-6, but then UCLA just turned on the gas, and they were cooking as they took that third set 25-19, and then UCLA just got off to an early start, and they never looked back as they took that fourth set 25-20, handing Long Beach State their first loss of the season. It was a huge win for the Bruins. And honestly, the big hero wasn't actually their pin hitters. It was actually their middle blocker, as Grant Sloan led the way with 16 kills. Yes, Grant Sloan was the one that answered the bell for UCLA. But Alex Knight also had 14 kills, and I actually got a little flack for mentioning that to Alan Knipe and the Long Beach State SID, Lindy Zamora, at Alan Knipe's pre-week press conference. And they kind of gave me a little hard time for wearing a little UCLA blue. But Alex Knight also had 14 kills. Merrick McHenry and Cooper Robinson both had 10 kills. Guy Guinness, 8 kills. This just goes to show the depth of UCLA, as Ethan Champlin did have to play libero, but he had a monster night defensively. He had 17 digs. That right there is an All-American. And I'm just going to say this like I truly mean it. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Number 1 fell down yet again. And it seems to be a running theme where the number 1 team in the nation just can't seem to have the week that they want, and no number 1 team in the nation is safe. Long Beach State was led by Clark Godbold, who had 15 kills. Sotir Shapanis had 13 kills, and Skylar Varga had 9 kills. UCLA hit 301 compared to Long Beach State's 238. Long Beach State had 16 digs from Mason Briggs. This was a huge weekend for Mason Briggs, and this just goes to show that he was one of the top liberos. He's one of the top, if not the best libero in NCAA men's volleyball this year. But Ethan Champlin stepped up at libero. UCLA as a team stepped up in terms of digs, having 47 digs compared to Long Beach State's 36. The UCLA unfortunately got out-blocked a little bit, 11.5 to 9, and UCLA did miss 18 serves, but Long Beach State only had 1 service ace. You can't have 1 service ace against UCLA. That just goes to show that UCLA did a great job of basically passing the ball, and when you're serving and passing tough, you're going to be having a leg up on the opposing team. But for Long Beach State UCLA, we need to have these two teams playing each other in 5 times a season, because this is basically primetime volleyball right here. This is the instance where this type of match right here needs to be pushed to the national stage. Needs to be put on ESPN Plus, maybe even ESPNU or ESPN3. So we gotta fix that. We have to fix that, and we have to basically get more of these nationally televised men's volleyball matches. But now we had Larry B said it best, number 1s just can't hang. And we'll see if Long Beach State stood pat at number 1. But we had a bunch of upsets. This was probably one of the bigger upsets. Lincoln Memorial, the LMU Rail Splitters. I talked about this being a sneaky good matchup. They upset number 10 Princeton on the road in 4 sets as Johan Negron and Ethan Morgan both had 11 kills. Ethan hit 733. Even though LMU only hit 187, they held Princeton to only 167. And Lincoln Memorial's blocking was on point. They had 12 blocks to Princeton's 9, and they outdug Princeton by 10. And they only missed 10 serves. When you're doing that, basically you're doing something good. And even though Princeton did have one more service ace than LMU, it just wasn't enough. They just didn't look like the team that beat Santa Barbara and Pepperdine. Princeton was led by Ben Harrington, who had 19 kills, while Nairo Omena and Owen Mellon both had 9 kills. Owen Mellon actually stepped up very nicely. I was very impressed with how he stepped up and was another option for Princeton, just because you can't be one-dimensional with feeding the ball to your best player. And Nairo Omene can only do so much for Loyola. And the big thing was for Princeton. But the big thing was for Princeton, they didn't have their starting setter, Henry Wedbush. They actually had to start Nolan Kelly at the setter position, as he had 36 assists and 9 digs. So that was something that needed to be stated. Henry Wedbush obviously is the starting setter for Princeton, and the Tigers definitely missed him. And it wasn't just in this match. The Tigers got upset again. They lost to Sacred Heart at home on the day after they lost to Lincoln Memorial in 5. Princeton got backdoor swept. Won the first 2 sets 22-25 or 25-22 and 27-25. Sacred Heart takes the third set 25-21, and Princeton actually had 2 match points in set 4, but they just could not take advantage of it. They actually had match points at 27-26 and 29-28, but unfortunately, Princeton just could not pull off that 4th set win. Sacred Heart took it 33-31, and then Sacred Heart just rode the momentum from that 4th set and wound up winning set 5, 15-10. This was Sacred Heart's first ranked win since 2018 when it swept number 12 Penn State, as Patrick Mucciarino had 17 kills. Carlos Santa Cruz and Mark Berry both had 16 kills. Sacred Heart at 237 while holding Princeton to 230. And they had 11 service aces. One more missed serve than Princeton. Princeton had 7 aces. Sacred Heart also dug the ball well. They outdug Princeton by 7. Then they barely outblocked Princeton. So Ben Harrington led the way with 23 kills for Princeton. Owen Mellon had 11 kills. Ryan Venna had 9 kills. And that was something big right there. Princeton needed to feed the middles more, because if they don't feed the middles, they weren't going to get a whole lot of production in terms of their offense. And just like football, good things happen when you run the middle. And my overall takeaway for Princeton is this. Maybe it had something to do with Nolan Kelly filling in for Henry Wedbush. But this was probably a disappointing week. You go from beating Santa Barbara and Pepperdine on your home court, both of which were ranked higher than you, to losing to Lincoln Memorial, who eventually lost to Harvard the day after, and you lost to Sacred Heart, who hadn't beaten a ranked team in almost 5 years. So Princeton needs to figure it out ASAP, and they have a huge matchup this week to start EIVA play against Penn State. That's a big-time matchup. But we got to circle the wagons back to more upsets. In the MIVA, we had Queens of North Carolina. They upset number 20 Purdue Fort Wayne. Queens took the first set 25-23. The opposite happened as Purdue Fort Wayne took that second set. And then they dominated the third set for the most part, winning it 25-16. And then Queens eked out that 4th set 25-23. And then 5th set happened. It was crazy. Queens was down 11-5 at one point in that 5th set, but they routed off 6 straight points to tie it up at 11-11. Purdue Fort Wayne won the next point. They went up 12-11, but Queens ended the match winning the last 4 points, and they beat Purdue Fort Wayne in MIVA play to salvage a split in their conference series. And this win is special for Queens because it's their first ever ranked win. It's a huge win for Queens, and they've been long yearning. They've been close several times against certain ranked opponents, but this time they were able to pull off the ranked upset. They defended their home court as Queens was led by Jack Brinkman, who had 11 kills. Sterling Sims, Ruben Emmerich, and Chance Champagne all had 9 kills. Shafar Grant had 7 kills as Queens hit 240, even though Purdue Fort Wayne hit 264. But the block party was there as they had 10 blocks. Purdue Fort Wayne had 10 blocks. Purdue Fort Wayne missed 20 serves. Queens, these two teams were actually nearly identical in stats. It's just that Queens kind of outdid them a little bit more in some of the other categories outside of digs and hitting percentage. Purdue Fort Wayne was led by Mark Frazier, who had 22 kills, while John Didrich had 17 kills, Bryce Walker 14 kills. Frazier also had 11 digs. Didrich had 10 digs. Andrew Mayer had 9 digs. My takeaway for Queens is this. I think they're starting to thrive more in the MIVA. Everyone chose them to finish last in the preseason poll. It looks like they might not be finishing last. Only the top 8 teams advanced to the MIVA tournament, and Queens in its first year in the MIVA tournament is looking really good to making the MIVA tournament. It's very impressive if you ask me, and this being their first ever ranked win shows that they have grown quite a bit. They battled Quincy, split that matchup right there, and beating Purdue Fort Wayne is no laughing matter, especially since that team was coming off of a big win the previous week against Penn State. But for the Mastodons, my takeaway for them is this. This was not the most ideal week for them. They had to go 4 to beat Queens the previous night. They lost to Loyola Chicago on Tuesday. Obviously, that's a lot of matches being played, and you obviously have to go to North Carolina. But if you want to thrive in the MIVA, you can't afford to lose to certain teams. Again, now we got to put Queens into the category of this team is also pretty darn good at volleyball. And there was also another big upset in the MIVA, as this one caught me by surprise, as this was actually number 11 Ball State falling to McKendree in straight sets. This was just very surprising, and I was just overall just flabbergasted by this loss for Ball State. But it also goes to show that no team is safe in the MIVA, and the MIVA is probably going to be a war, and it's probably the most unpredictable conference to predict a conference champion, and that's the beauty of this conference, because any team can beat anyone at any time. As Ball State was led by Patrick Rogers, who had 12 kills. The big thing was McKendree held Tanashi Indavazocheva in check, as he only had 4 kills. He hit 0 for the match. So the big overall takeaway is this: when Tanashi Indavazocheva is hitting nothing, then in terms of hitting percentage, then that's scary for them. That's when you know you are not going to be. That's when you know you're screwed. When your top player is having one of the worst nights ever, and this upset came after their head coach Teran Rodriguez was named an assistant coach for their women's volleyball team, which I think is huge. And also, Nikki Sandlin was promoted as she was named the assistant athletic director, the director of volleyball, and she's also the head men's volleyball coach, and she's also the designator of diversity, equity, and inclusion at McKendree. So a huge week for the Bearcats, as McKendree was led by Kevin Shuley, who had 17 kills. Sam Hoskin had 15 kills. And this is the scary thing about McKendree. They could be so iffy at times in the MIVA, but then when they face a team that's much better than them, they pull off the upset. They did it against Loyola in the MIVA tournament. They did it that week against Ball State. And this just goes to show MIVA play is so unpredictable. Any team can be at risk of losing to any team. And heck, Ball State barely outlasted Lindenwood this past weekend on Saturday. They needed 5 to take down those Lions. And then the last upset we have to go over, this one probably is the upset that didn't get looked at, as the Masters College of Santa Clara. This is an NAIA team. The Masters College upset CSUN on the road in straight sets. The Broncos won the first set 25-20, didn't trail in that set. Second set, CSUN this is the set where CSUN needed to win this set. Because if they lost this set, they were in trouble. Being down 0-2 against a Masters College team that actually was undefeated. Keep in mind, NAIA school, but they've taken down a bunch of quality opponents, as you have to look at the Masters College schedule to see who they've actually taken down. And they've taken down some really good teams. And they're actually ranked in the NAIA's top 5, being number 5. But looking at some of their wins, they have some pretty darn good wins, if you ask me. They've beaten the likes of Grandview, which is a perennial men's volleyball powerhouse in the NAIA. They also beat UC Irvine, well, that was all the way back in October, but still. And I said the Broncos, I meant to say the Mustangs. But they've beaten St. Xavier, which was number 8 in the nation. Grandview, like I said, they beat them, which was number 6 in the nation. They swept Lourdes. They swept Park of Missouri, and they were number 3 in the NAIA polls. And the week before, the Masters College took down number 2 Benedictine in 4 sets. On the road, mind you. So this just goes to show that NAIA schools can hang with NCAA Division 1-2 men's volleyball teams. And going back to the Masters College in the match against CSUN, they won the third set 25-18. Never trailed in that one, and there were no ties, as the Masters were led by Braden Van Groningen, who had 10 kills. He had 0 hitting errors on 19 swings. He hit 526. Diego Perez also had 9 kills. The Masters College hit 362, even though CSUN hit 359. Blocking was non-existent, but the huge thing for CSUN, they missed 26 serves. 26 serves in a 3-set match. Now you start to wonder how CSUN basically lost this one. Because this is against a Masters College team who actually played its first NCAA men's volleyball opponent in Division 1-2, or National Collegiate, as you kids like to say. But for CSUN, this is not a good loss. I mean, yes, the Masters College was undefeated, but this was their first match against a National Collegiate men's volleyball team. And the day after, the Masters College actually lost in 4 at Concordia Irvine. Concordia was actually a former NAIA school. So, my goodness gracious, what a bad weekend to be a CSUN fan in men's volleyball, as well as a Princeton fan. The Matadors were led by Kyle Hobus, who had 13 kills. Griffin Walters had 11 kills. Like I said, CSUN hit 359, but defense wasn't really existent for neither team. The Masters only had 2 blocks on the day. They had 1 service ace, but CSUN only had 2 aces, and they only had 5 blocks overall, and they were outdug by 3. And they had more kills than the Masters College. It just goes to show that you have to dominate in every aspect of the game, whether it's serving, passing, defense, offense. You have to put all of those motions together, otherwise you're going to be at the mercy. And the Masters College only missed 10 serves. CSUN almost tripled that amount. That's when you know you couldn't defeat a team that was red hot in the NAIA world. Alright, but that is that for all of the NCAA men's volleyball notable matches from last week. We also, like I said, there were some also other notable ones, as we had Lindenwood almost beating Ball State, but like I said, the Cardinals pulled off the win, and it was a big one, and Harvard was able to knock off Lincoln Memorial, as I said previously. Alright, but that is going to do it for NCAA men's volleyball week 6 recap right there. Crazy week. Now we got to go over the AVCA/NVA, or not AVCA/NVA men's volleyball national collegiate poll, as it was kind of an interesting poll. So instead of going from bottom to top, we're going from top to bottom. So 1 through 5, Long Beach State stood pat. Even though they lost to UCLA, they wound up staying at number 1. They garnered 17 first place votes. Grand Canyon garnered 5 first place votes. They finished 2. Hawaii garnered a first place vote. They finished their 3. UCLA is 4, and Stanford is 5. Then we go 6 through 10. BYU, they They beat LIU twice. They swept LIU twice. And then UC Irvine, they stood pat 7, even though they wound up losing to USC. Ohio State went down to 8. Penn State stayed at 9, as they actually won a 4-set match against Fairleigh Dickinson. First set went to Penn State, but then Fairleigh Dickinson, the Knights were able to take that second set in crazy fashion, 34-32, but the Nittany Lions basically were poked, and you don't want to poke the Nittany Lion, as they took the next 2 sets, and they took the match. Loyola jumped to number 10, which was the biggest jump of the week, along with another team. Pepperdine went up to 11. USC also had a big jump, 3 spots, into number 12. Lewis jumped up to 13. Ball State went down to 14. Princeton went down. They had the biggest drop of the week, going from 10 all the way through to 15. CSUN stayed at 16. Now, I'm not sure if this was reported, but I'm surprised CSUN stays at 16 despite getting swept by the Masters College. Maybe the Masters College, we're all underestimating the Masters College, and maybe there's a reason why they're one of the top teams in the NAIA, but I'm surprised CSUN did not go down. I'm surprised they just stayed put. And then George Mason went up to 17. UC Santa Barbara went down to 18. Lincoln Memorial re-entered the top 20 as they went up to 19. And UC San Diego is holding on to that number 20 spot. Purdue Fort Wayne fell out of the poll, but they're still receiving votes. And yeah, it just felt weird seeing CSUN still being stayed put. I'm not sure if their score was reported against the Masters College. But again, Masters College is top 5. They've taken down a bunch of quality opponents in the NAIA. So there you have it right there. And it also just goes to show that these NAIA schools come to play. As Vanguard, as in the Masters College, they're going to be in the MPSF next year in men's volleyball. Both those schools are getting promoted from NAIA to NCAA Division II. But for Vanguard and the Masters College in men's volleyball, since men's volleyball is Division I and Division II, or National Collegiate, they basically get smacked in the middle of the MPSF. And that's going to be pretty fun right there, seeing Vanguard in the Masters take on the likes of UCLA, USC, Pepperdine, Stanford, Grand Canyon, BYU. It's going to be fun times. All right, but that's that for the AVCA/NVA men's volleyball coaches poll. Larry B says number 1s just can't hang. Yeah, I agree, but I will also just say Long Beach State they have 2 matches this week. They're hosting the SIAC teams in Edward Waters and Central State. The SIAC is now a part of that Power 5 conference where if you win that conference tournament, you get into the NCAA tournament. I said it was the Conference of Carolinas. I unfortunately was mistaken. So the SIAC, the Big West, the MPSF, the MIVA, and the EIVA are all of your automatic qualifiers into the tournament. And then there are going to be 8 teams in the NCAA tournament, as there will be 3 at-larges, which I think is good. I feel UC Irvine got left out of that tournament, but it was also due to the fact that they had only 2 wins against teams in consideration of the NCAA tournament, and that's what hurt them. Now to the off-the-block media poll from last week. So this was from last week, and Princeton, BYU, UC Irvine, Penn State, and Ohio State were 10 through 6. 5 through 1 was UCLA and Stanford tied at number 4, Hawaii at number 3, GCU at number 2, and Long Beach State at number 1. So if you all remember, I've pretty much had most of these actually nailed down for the most part. I actually put Stanford ahead of UCLA. I had Ohio State at 6. I had Penn State and UC Irvine flip-flopped, as I put UC Irvine at number 7 and Penn State at 8. BYU and Princeton were firmly grasped at 9 and 10. And then Long Beach State was number 1. But here's the discrepancy. I think Hawaii deserves to be number 2 in the off-the-block media poll. I think Hawaii has played such a tougher schedule than Grand Canyon, because if I recall correctly, GCU's best win of the season is against, UCSB. And that's nothing ultimately to ride home about. And this is no knock on the Lopes. I think GCU is a great team, and they're definitely going to be a threat in the MPSF. But they haven't really been tested. You look at their 9 wins. They're 9-0, and they're probably the last undefeated team in NCAA National Collegiate Men's Volleyball. GCU's beaten CSUN, UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara. They beat Lindenwood twice. They beat UC San Diego again. They had to go 4 with Merrimack, and they beat Harvard and Damon. But this week, GCU has a huge test at BYU. That is going to be a big one because BYU is one of the tougher places to win at in volleyball. So there you go. So this week, for the off-the-block media poll, I voted Loyola Chicago at 10, as Adam Karnick pops in the chat room. He said, "Good evening, Teran." UC Irvine at 9, BYU at 8, Ohio State at 7, Penn State at 6, Stanford at 5, UCLA at 4. I now have clarity on who I should put ahead of who. UCLA deserves to be ranked ahead of Stanford for the time being. Grand Canyon at 3, Hawaii at 2, and Long Beach State at number 1. I kept Long Beach State at number 1 just because they beat UCLA. I almost wanted to put Hawaii at number 1. I feel that Hawaii's played a much tougher and rewarding schedule than Long Beach State has. Other than the UCLA match, their other biggest test came against Pepperdine, where Long Beach State just straight up stomped on them. But like I said, Long Beach State has struggled against a few other teams that were unranked, like NJIT and then St. Francis. They also had to go forward with George Mason. So, yes, Adam, good to hear the Ramblers belong in the top 10. Not just in the off-the-block media poll, but in the AVCA/NVA men's volleyball coaches poll. So, there you have it right there. The polls always get released Tuesday, every Tuesday at probably about like noon, maybe a little earlier. It all depends on when Vinny Lopes decides to put it out. And I, along with several different media members of the NCAA men's volleyball community, vote for this stuff. So we'll see if my top 10 matches up with the off-the-block top 10. So that's going to do it for everything men's volleyball. Sorry if I went a little over, as we're almost an hour into this, but there was a lot of NCAA men's volleyball that happened. So we're going to take ourselves a quick little break. When we come back, we have the AVP beach volleyball schedule to go over. And we also have Pro Volleyball Federation happening, as there was actually a match that happened. I think there were 2 matches that happened today while I'm recording, which... yeah, thanks, Pro Volleyball Federation. Thanks for having 2 matches on while I'm basically doing this. Yes, there were 2 matches that happened. Atlanta and Orlando, and Grand Rapids and Omaha. So we'll have to briefly recap those, along with the matches from last week. And then we have, like I said, the AVP schedule to go over. And then we have NCAA Men's Volleyball Week 7 to preview. So keep it locked here. You are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you, from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well, and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports, because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on the defining moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always willing to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernick, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on eSports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows. As Adam Karnick show, he actually did a great job with his show regarding the Chicago Bears and their players getting into the NFL Hall of Fame. And the defining moment is actually back, and I'm hoping it stays back just because, well, for starters, it is the flagship show of IE Sports Radio. But definitely check out all of our amazing shows as let's get back into the action. So let's go over a little AVP. So yes, the AVP, the Beach Volleyball League that didn't have an actual championship this past season, I'm looking at you, AVP, now has released their schedule. And they actually have a location on where their championship is going to be. So the 2024 AVP season begins on May 17th through the 19th at the Huntington Beach Open. And, oh man, you can't start better than the Huntington Beach Open. Maybe you can in maybe the Hermosa Beach Open, but Huntington Beach draws a lot of attention. I was at the Huntington Beach Open last year. I wish I wasn't so busy in terms of all my other commitments, and I'm hoping I won't get busy, knock on wood. But the Huntington Beach Open is basically the start of the AVP season. So there are actually two series. There's the AVP Heritage Series, and there's the AVP League. The AVP League, I imagine, is basically the meat and potatoes and what gives you all of the points to qualify for the AVP League Championship. So the Heritage Series is basically like the tip of the iceberg. And May 17th through the 19th is the Huntington Beach Open. That's when the AVP season begins. And I can't wait to meet all the players and whatnot. I need to get a credential ASAP. Then the next AVP tournament is on July 6th through 7th. Wow, they actually take a big break in the months of June. But maybe that's probably because of Olympics. That has to be. But July 6th and 7th is the Denver Open, which is the second AVP tournament. Then July 11th and 12th is the Waupaca Open in Wisconsin. Then August 3rd and 4th is the Virginia Beach Open in the DMV area. Then we get the granddaddy of them all. August 16th through the 18th is the Manhattan Beach Open. Now, I don't know why the Manhattan Beach Open is not in the AVP League. That is probably the cornerstone of AVP volleyball. But unfortunately, it's going to be in the Heritage Series. I think the Manhattan Beach Open is probably big time, and it should be an AVP League game, or AVP League tournament. And then August 30th through September 1st is the Chicago Open. Adam Karnick popping in the chat room and saying, AVP! Yes, the AVP. And that's actually the Chicago Open is actually the last match, or the last tournament of the Heritage Series. Then the AVP League, it actually shifts between certain cities. So some of these cities will be repeats, as the first AVP League tournament will be in Los Angeles from September 14th through 15th. Don't know where the location will be, but it's in Los Angeles. Then September 21st through the 22nd, it's going to be in South Florida. Then September 28th through the 29th, it's going to head back to California, and it's going to be in San Diego, which I think is going to be fun. And I don't know if they've really had any AVP tournaments. And it looks like the AVP League is going to be a weekly thing, whereas the AVP Heritage Series had a bunch of gaps in it. Then October 5th through the 6th, the AVP League heads to Austin in Texas, and then on October 12th through the 13th, they head back to Florida in Palm Beach, and then October 19th through 20th, the AVP League heads back to San Diego. Then October 26th through the 27th, the AVP League will stay in California and head to Los Angeles. Then lastly, the AVP League will be heading down back to Texas, and they'll be having the AVP League in Dallas on November 2nd through the 3rd. And then the AVP League Championship will be in Los Angeles on November 9th through the 10th. Now, I kind of wish here's my qualms with some of this whole AVP schedule. Where is the Hermosa Beach Open? There's no Laguna Beach Open. I kind of question the AVP for not having the Hermosa Beach Open and the Laguna Beach Open. Maybe it just didn't work with Laguna Beach, and they want to have the AVP tournament in San Diego, because San Diego is a beautiful place, and there are some good beaches around there to play like beach volleyball. But they could have put the Hermosa Beach Open there. I think they also could have put the Pisomo Beach Open. But I'm a little flabbergasted of not seeing Hermosa Beach. So I don't know why the AVP did not have a Hermosa Beach Open or a Laguna Beach Open. But Laguna Beach Open is one of the longer tenured tournaments in the AVP. But at the very least, they have a championship, so they can crown an actual AVP championship. Whereas last season, they didn't. They didn't, and it left a bunch of volleyball fans, such as myself, in the dark. And from what I heard from one of the players who was kind enough to tell me, I think it had to do with budget in terms of like having and possibly not having a set location. So hoping for the sake of the AVP, we won't be able to have any problems or hiccups in regards to tournaments. I know there are a couple of AVP players playing in the Pro Volleyball Federation League, such as Sarah Sponsel and Carly Scott, both of Grand Rapids Rise, which is actually a perfect segue to go into Pro Volleyball Federation week number 3. And I guess week 3 continues to bleed into Monday, so it's going to have like the NFL format where the league, I guess, starts on Wednesday, and then it'll end on a certain week will end on like Tuesday. So the week 3 recap. The week started on Wednesday, where the Las Vegas Thrill finally had their first match of the season, and they were actually able to pull off a huge win on the road. They beat the Omaha Supernovas 3-2 at the CHI Health Center in Nebraska, which is basically the home of Creighton. The Vegas Thrill won the match 19-25, 25-23, 25-20, 18-25, and 15-12. Here's some big takeaways from that. Las Vegas is hella scrappy, and I will never use that word ever again, but the Thrill trailed 17-12 in set 3, but they went on a 13-3 run to take that third set. And in addition, the Thrill trailed 8-5 in set 5, and then used a 6-0 run to go up 11-8, and they never looked back as they wound up winning that fifth set, and they wound up winning in their inaugural match in the land of volleyball in Nebraska. Hannah Maddox led the Thrill with 18 kills and 11 digs. Molly McCage had 14 kills. Saskia Hip had 11 kills and 10 digs. Kylie Murr had 28 digs. Alicia Glass-Childress had 46 assists and 16 digs. Jess Shaben Landsman had 15 kills and 14 digs. Paige Briggs, in her first start with the Supernovas, had 14 kills and 19 digs. Betty De La Cruz had 13 digs. Sydney Hilly had 40 assists and 20 digs. Kendall White had 12 digs. So my takeaway for the Thrill is this. For a team that was picked to finish dead last in the league, they actually proved really well against the team that was chosen to finish first in the Pro Volleyball Federation. And I gotta give a tip of the hat to the Thrill on that one. I didn't think that the Supernovas were going to lose at home, but the Thrill in their first match of the season, they came in cold turkey, but they wound up being really good. But it helps that they have some veteran players like Molly McCage, who played for Athletes Unlimited. That's big to have a player like that, and honestly, if they don't have her production, I don't know if the Thrill win this match. But snatching the third set was so crucial against Omaha, because when you're up 17-12, it looks like you're not going to be able to come back. But when you have a 13-3 run, that's when you know your team is pretty legit. And making that fifth set comeback was also pretty big as well. So not bad. Then we jump to Friday. Grand Rapids Rise took down the Atlanta Vibe in 4 sets at Gas South Arena. 25-20, 21-25, 25-22, and 25-22. This match actually was rather entertaining, as it seemed like both of those teams could have won the sets, but the Grand Rapids Rise rose to the occasion. They handed the Atlanta Vibe their first loss of the season, and how fitting they wound up winning on the road, as Simone Abbott led the Rise with 16 kills. Claire Chausse and Amelia Dimitrova both had 12 kills. Chausse had 13 digs. Dimitrova had 12 digs. Sarah Sponsel had 19 digs. And Ashley Evans had 44 assists to go along with 8 digs. For the Vibe, Leah Edmond led the way with 18 kills and 13 digs. Lecator member Monet had 13 kills and 13 digs. Morgan Hentz had 19 digs. Grace Cleveland had 9 kills and 12 digs. Tori Dilfer-Stringer had 47 assists and 8 digs. So, if you're wondering where Allie Linehan is or Allie Stumler is, she actually was put on short-term IR as she suffered a foot injury in one of the Vibes win last week. I think it was against San Diego. But regardless, not having Allie Stumler or Allie Linehan, Stumler was her maiden name until she got married, but not having Allie Linehan is kind of big right there. You need to have her as healthy as possible. So for Atlanta, they really missed her, but Lecator member Monet is definitely stepping up. And my big thing is, do you keep Lecator member Monet in the starting lineup, or do you shuffle her around with Allie Linehan? I think member Monet definitely deserves to be in the starting lineup. And then on Saturday, we had the Orlando Valkyries picking up their first win of the season, first win in terms of their program overall, knocking off the Vegas Thrill at home in 4 sets, home being the Addition Financial Arena in Orlando, but 25-23, 25-10, 23-25, and 25-21 were the set scores. Jill Gillen, everyone's favorite volleyball player, led the Valkyries with 14 kills and 7 digs. Adora Ane had 13 kills and 12 digs. Casimir Brown had 10 kills. Georgia Murphy had 17 digs. Wilma Rivera had 41 assists and 10 digs. For the Thrill, Saskia Hippie led the way with 12 kills. Gabby Gonzalez had 11 kills and 14 digs. Hannah Maddox had 10 kills. Alicia Glass-Childress had 36 assists, and 14 digs. Kylie Murr had 12 digs. So the takeaway for Orlando is this. I think Orlando is much better than what most people give them credit for. And honestly, I will say this about Orlando. I will not be surprised if they pull off an upset. They actually played Atlanta tonight, and we'll be going over that matchup blindly. For the thrill, I will say this. 1-1 is not bad. For a team that was slated to finish last in the PVF, I thought this week was actually a success. Against Orlando on the road, it's tough. You have to go from Omaha, Nebraska to Orlando, Florida, and you have to be projected to pick up both wins. Well, not projected, but you have the dishonor of trying to win both matches, and both those teams are stacked. And Jill Gillen just continues to get better and better for the Valkyries. So, nothing to be ashamed of if you're the Thrill. However, it could have been a whole lot better for them, but beating the Supernovas was huge. If they needed to win that one to basically make a statement. So there you have it right there regarding that whole thing in terms of the past week matches. And Atlanta, and this is courtesy of Avid Volley. He's actually a good Avid Volley on X, formerly known as Twitter, is a good follow to have. He actually covers pro volleyball, or the Avid Volley actually covers pro volleyball. And it's not just in North America, it's actually all over the world. So Avid Volley covers a lot more pro volleyball than I do. So if you're into that, definitely check out at Avid Volley. But per at Avid Volley, the Atlanta Vibe took down the Orlando Valkyries in 5. Another 5-set thriller as Leah Edmond led the way with 20 kills and 4 blocks. Lecator member Monet also had 20 kills. She had 2 aces and 2 blocks. Adora Ane led the Valkyries with 26 kills and 3 service aces. Jill Gillen had 17 kills and 2 blocks and an ace. So I can't really put too many takeaways for that match, but I will say I'm not surprised that Orlando pushed Atlanta to the brink. Orlando is so much better than what they're projected to finish in. I think Orlando could possibly make that top 4 because only the top 4 make the PVF playoffs. And also per at Avid Volley, the Omaha Supernovas took down the Grand Rapids Rise in 4 sets, which is the first loss for Grand Rapids Rise. So, if I recall correctly, there are no more undefeated PVF teams. So, there you have it. No one's going undefeated, as the Vibe has lost 1, Grand Rapids Rise lost 1. Unfortunately, Omaha has lost a couple. Sorry, Supernova fans. And then the Columbus Fury lost in their season opener, which is a bummer. And then San Diego still has yet to pick up a win, which hopefully that changes soon. I'm so thinking of going to their match on the 23rd, but it's all the way in San Diego. But my boy Nick England's going to be there with the San Diego Wild, so decisions. Oh, and also the Valkyries, unfortunately, aren't undefeated. So no PVF team is going undefeated this year. I'm sorry to anyone that was hoping for that, but too bad. Anyway, so for the Supernovas, they were led by Brooke Nuneviller, who had 18 kills. Jess Landsman had 17 kills. Betty De La Cruz had 8 kills and 6 service aces. Oh, good God. Claire Chaussee led the Rise with 19 kills. Simone Abbott had 15 kills, and Amelia Dimitrova had 16 kills. So, one of the sets that I saw before going live was Omaha winning the third set 33-31. You know the running theme of this show, a team wins a big third set in overtime, and you're probably going to hear me say this once again. If Omaha doesn't win that third set, or if the Rise win that third set, then the Rise are feeling good going into set 4. But honestly, this was at Grand Rapids Rise. This was in Michigan. So I will say this. I'm not ultimately surprised that Grand Rapids lost, but they were the last undefeated team in the PVF. And again, Omaha is so stacked from top to bottom. There's a reason why they were chosen to finish first in the PVF preseason poll. So all in all, I think we're in for a very good ride when it comes to the PVF, as this is basically the whole any given week where any team can knock off any team. It doesn't matter how good or how bad you are, or who your players are, or how tall your players are. You could basically knock off any team on any given night, at any place, any time, any day, anywhere. But, anywhere, any place, that sounded redundant, but you get what I mean. Alright, but that is that for this week in terms of the recap. I will just say it's a little inconvenient to having the PVF on a Monday, because basically I have to choose between missing my show or missing that. And I really wish I could have given you all a better recap of those matches, but unfortunately when it came down to it, time just did not work in my favor. So, heading over to week number... What are we in? Week 3? Yeah, week 3. No, we're in week 4. Sorry. This is what happens when these two Monday matches count as week 3. Anyway, so Thursday, the Omaha Supernovas are back at it as they hit the road to Las Vegas, or Sin City, to take on the Vegas Thrill. So it's a rematch between those two teams, as the Thrill took down the Supernovas in 5 sets this past Wednesday, but the Vegas Thrill have the honor of facing the Supernovas at the Dollar Loan Center. I'm going to guess that is at the University of UNLV. Or the place where UNLV plays their matches in terms of women's volleyball. But the Vegas Thrill, it's going to be tough to beat a team in the span of the same team in the span of 8 weeks or 8 days. So I will just say Vegas might have their work cut out for them, but they do get to host their first ever home match. Let's see if the Vegas Thrill can do the unthinkable and beat the Omaha Supernovas again. And then on Friday, finally this team gets to play again. The Columbus Fury hits the road to Orlando to Addition Financial Arena to take on the Orlando Valkyries. Alright, it's been a while since the Columbus Fury has played a match. I want to say it's been 3 weeks. That's a lot of rust, if you ask me. But hopefully, Columbus will have Asia O'Neal healthy. They'll have, I think her name is Jenna Rosenthal. Jenna Rosenthal healthy. Hopefully they'll have most of their players healthy, just because they did not have a majority of those players in the match against Grand Rapids Rise. For the Valkyries, well, they have a match under their belt this week. Technically this week of the calendar year. But I would not be surprised if the Fury had a little bit of a rust hangover. I mean, unless they get their entire roster back, maybe I could see the Valkyries winning, but we'll see what happens. I'm not trying to say Columbus is going to lose, but it's going to be tough coming off of a 3-week layoff, as it'll have been 22 days since they last played a match against someone not themselves. But you never know. I mean, again, this is the whole any given week thing. And then on Sunday, we have a doubleheader. Oh, a doubleheader. So the doubleheader starts with the Atlanta Vibe taking on Grand Rapids Rise at Vandell Arena in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So this one's going to be a fun one, as it's basically round 2 between these two teams, as, again, 9 days ago, prior to that match, the Grand Rapids Rise defeated the Atlanta Vibe, which is big, but now Grand Rapids Rise has to defend their home court. Now, I don't know if this one could go either way. I think Atlanta could win this one, but Grand Rapids Rise with Claire Chaussee, she could obviously take over a match. As well, and Lecator member Monet has really stepped up for the Vibe, but you also have to look at Sarah Sponsel, who has transitioned from beach volleyball over to indoor volleyball, and that transition is really looking well. And by the way, I think Carly Scott and Sarah Sponsel will still partake in the AVP, because I think the PVF is going to be ending before the AVP season starts. But for Grand Rapids Rise and Atlanta Vibe, this one could go either way, and honestly, I can't predict a clear-cut winner. And then also on Sunday, we have the Orlando Valkyries hitting the road to the land of volleyball, Nebraska, to take on the Omaha Supernovas. Alright, this is going to be a fun one right here. I think Orlando can win this one, but they play Omaha. They're playing at Omaha, and it's going to be a tricky one. Omaha has proven that they can win on the road. They just took down the Rise in 4 sets tonight. So at this point, again, this is another one of those very tough, close matches to predict. But I will also just say, I think we could be in for a 5-setter. At least 4 sets. But if I had to pick, I'd probably pick the Supernovas, but you can't go wrong with picking the Valkyries. And then on Monday, we have the San Diego Mojo hitting the road to Sin City to take on the Las Vegas Thrill at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, which would be 4 p.m. my time. All right, so this matchup. This is going to be an interesting match. I feel the Mojo should be better than they were in their opening week, but the Thrill will have a bunch of matches under their belts going into this match. So I would definitely pick the Thrill to win this one, but you never want to underestimate the Mojo. It looks like the San Diego Mojo have a lot of Oregon players, as one of the PVF broadcasters did get backlash for commenting about Oregon and whatnot negatively. So the moral of the story, watch what you say over the air, because you could receive a lot of backlash. But anyway, Mojo versus Thrill. I think this is going to be an interesting matchup. I think the Thrill is going to win this one, but again, don't underestimate the Mojo, especially since they just can't afford to look ahead. If they look ahead to their home opener against Grand Rapids Rise, they are for sure losing against the Thrill. But I will say, I think we're in for a fun matchup between those two. I think either of those teams can win. And I know that sounds redundant, but I just think that the Thrill is a much better team than they were given credit for, just because they were chosen to finish last. That's not really fair. And after these first few weeks of the PVF, I think it's any given week that any of these teams can beat any of these teams. So we'll see what happens. All right, but that is that for the PVF portion of the show. Now let's preview Week 7 of the NCAA men's volleyball season, and then I'll let y'all go. I won't be talking some 3C2A men's volleyball just because, well, we're already almost 90 minutes into this thing. But I will go to a couple of 3C2A men's volleyball matches this week, so there you have it. All right, but NCAA men's volleyball week number 7. The action starts on Wednesday when number 10 Loyola hits the road to Romeoville to take on number 13 Lewis in the Battle of Illinois. All right, this is where all records and everything goes out the window. This is a rivalry match right here. All bets are off when it comes to Loyola versus Lewis, and honestly, I think either of these teams can win. I think Loyola can definitely knock off Lewis convincingly, but Lewis is so much better than what people have given credit for. They've pushed a lot of good teams to the brink, and heck, they even beat BYU. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the Flyers and the Ramblers, but honestly, if I had to pick, I'd say Loyola just because they are battle-tested. I'm not trying to discredit Lewis, but I feel Loyola is more battle-tested, having taken on a bunch of ranked teams, and this is going to really impact the MIVA standings just because both these teams have one loss, and something's got to give here. Also on Wednesday, MPSF play kicks off. Yes, we're now getting into the meat and potatoes of conference play in NCAA men's volleyball, or National Collegiate men's volleyball, as number 10 Pepperdine hits the road to Westwood to take on number 4 UCLA. These two teams will be facing each other on Saturday in Malibu, but Pepperdine had a great week. I should also mention the MPSF had probably one of the best Saturdays that they've had, or one of the best days this NCAA men's volleyball season, as the entirety of the MPSF went undefeated on Saturday. They went 5-0 with Concordia Irvine beating the Masters, Pepperdine sweeping UC Santa Barbara, BYU sweeping LIU, USC picking up their first top 10 win of the season and taking down UC Irvine, and then UCLA beating Long Beach State. Yes, I'm referring to that one day, not the entire week, not yesterday, not the day after, so please don't get frustrated with me, every other fan. But the MPSF had a pretty good pretty good day on Saturday. So for this matchup, look, this is going to be the whole Cole Kachansky match. I feel Cole Kachansky can go off against his former team, but UCLA has a lot of momentum winning against Long Beach State. I would not be surprised if UCLA won both these matches, but Pepperdine can hang with the best. And remember, this is a UCLA team that's kind of been a little up and down when it comes to 5-set matches. So that's the thing that UCLA needs to avoid. They have to avoid the match going to 5. Otherwise, if it goes 5, then all bets are off and anything can happen with the Bruins and the Waves. Then we have a little sneaky good matchup right here. Purdue-Fort Wayne at number 14 Ball State. So this is an in-state rivalry match, kind of like Loyola and Lewis. All bets are off when it comes to in-state rivalry matches, and honestly, don't be surprised if Purdue-Fort Wayne makes Ball State sweat. But I will say, Ball State, they gotta win this one. They need to get back on track in the MIVA because that race is getting so much more interesting by the day. And I know they have, I think they're 2-1 if I recall, but yeah, they're 2-1 because they lost to McKendree, they beat Loyola, and they outlasted Lindenwood. But here's the thing. The MIVA gets tougher and tougher, and Ball State cannot have Tanashi Indavazocheva having a dud night against McKendree. And they can't afford to go 5 because even though Ball State is hosting, I think Purdue-Fort Wayne can definitely try to have a bounce-back game just because losing to Queens obviously leaves a bad taste in their mouth. But time will tell regarding this matchup. I think this is a sneaky good matchup. If Purdue-Fort Wayne was ranked, I think this would have definitely been a matchup to definitely watch for. But this is a sneaky good matchup just because it's a rivalry match, in-state rivalry match, and I want to see how Purdue-Fort Wayne bounces back after going 1-2 last week. Then Friday and Saturday, it's a stacked week. It's a stacked weekend. So Friday, we have another sneaky good matchup. Number 17, George Mason at NJIT. Look, NJIT, someone told me that NJIT is actually having some good weeks. But here's the thing. NJIT hasn't really picked up a ranked win. This would be so huge for NJIT for them to win. And they did come off of a loss to Sacred Heart. But if NJIT starts EIVA play 1-0, this could be big for them. And they have that jersey grid. I think that NJIT is definitely a good team. So for George Mason, it's just all about them proving the preseason poll correct. Because they did get a first-place vote. However, they were chosen to finish 3rd in the EIVA. So I'm going to be interested to see how George Mason fares against the Highlanders of NJIT. And speaking of EIVA play, perfect segue to go in this next matchup. Number 9 Penn State at number 15 Princeton. This unfortunately went from probably the most interesting match to probably Princeton finding a way to bounce back. As, again, Princeton had such an awful week. I don't know what the status is regarding Henry Wedbush, but Princeton needs a big bounce back win. Penn State hasn't been the world beaters that they are, but they certainly aren't the rebuilding team that that most people think they are. They have a lot of senior leadership, and one thing to watch for is the setter. Who's going to be starting setter? Will it be Luke Snyder or will it be Michael Schwobe? That's going to be something I ask regarding the pregame press conference for Penn State tomorrow, and hopefully I'm not too late as of this recording. Like I said, the two teams will be meeting on Friday and on Saturday. It's going to be a fun matchup. Speaking of fun matchups, we got the match and series of the week. Number 2 Grand Canyon at number 6 BYU. The two teams are also playing on Saturday in addition to Friday. All right, Grand Canyon, you gotta prove it to me. You gotta prove that you deserve to be number 1. If Grand Canyon wins both these matches, they deserve to be number 1 in the nation. I don't care what happens with Long Beach. I don't care what happens with Hawaii. All that matters is Grand Canyon needs to go 2-0. If they go 2-0, I put them at number 1. If they go 1-1, they're probably staying pat at number 2. And if they go 0-2, then they're probably dropping like a rock. For BYU, this is their chance to open up the conference maybe 1-1, if not 2-0, because BYU is one of the toughest places to win at. Grand Canyon has not been battle-tested. If there's ever a week for BYU to basically make a statement, it is this week against the number 2 team in the nation, and probably one of the only few, if not the only undefeated team in National Collegiate Men's Volleyball. So BYU, there's not a whole lot of pressure on them, except for the fact that they could go 0-2, but salvaging at least one win would be perfect for the Cougars. Then another little fun matchup right here on Friday and on Saturday. Number 7 UC Irvine at number 5 Stanford. Alright, I don't know what problem UC Irvine has. Maybe it was just David Niffin shuffling his lineup with putting Joe Carlos in and keeping him in it, as opposed to Brett Sheward starting the entire match and finishing the entire match. But I will just say, UC Irvine's got to figure this out sooner rather than later. I know they don't start conference play for another 2 weeks, but with how the conferences look in terms of the Big West, I think there's not going to be an easy match. And then for Stanford, they got to get Will Rotman back whenever he can. And if they get him back this week, that's a huge bonus for them. But if they don't have him back, then they have to have someone else step up, whether it's Kevin Lamp, Teo Snooey, Alex Rotman, Nathan Gates, or Nathaniel Gates. They have to have someone stepping up regarding Will Rotman being out. But if Will Rotman is back, at least close to 100%, then honestly, Stanford definitely has a fighting chance to at least pull off one win against the Anteaters. And then closing off the matches to watch for, we have number 14 Ball State at number 10 Loyola. Alright, this is going to be a fun one. Loyola beat Ball State beat Loyola in the first match in Muncie. This time, it's round 2, and we'll see what happens. I really think Loyola can win this one, but Ball State has proven they're such an interesting team. One week they look like they could contend with the top 10, or they're close to being top 10, and then the next week they don't belong in the top 10 entirely. For Ball State and Loyola, this is a huge match. This is a huge week for both these teams, as they've got their rivals earlier in the week, and then they face one another on Saturday. And Ball State has been definitely playing a lot of tough matches. Same with Loyola in terms of the MIVA. And this is definitely going to be make or break in terms of the standings. Remember, the Cardinals have a win over the Ramblers in MIVA play. But now, let's see what happens with the Ramblers in Cardinals round 2. Going to be in Chicago, Illinois, so it's going to be a fun one. And that is pretty much going to do it for all of the NCAA men's volleyball matches to watch for in week number 7. I don't think I left out too many, as I think Long Beach State hosts the SIAC teams, which, if you're wondering why, well, UC San Diego also plays the SIAC teams in Edward Waters and Central State, but if you're wondering why Long Beach State is playing those two teams as opposed to like maybe some other teams, it's because one of the teams from the SIAC is going to be heading to the NCAA tournament. And no, I don't think another SIAC team is going to be making it as an at-large, but time will tell. I'm not trying to take a poo-poo on the SIAC teams, but I just think it's a new conference in the automatic qualifier category. It's a fairly new conference altogether, as this is only, I want to say it's like the second season that they've had a conference, and maybe the second season they've had a conference tournament. But against the number 1 team in the nation, they're going to have to play some darn good volleyball. But that's going to do it for all of the NCAA men's volleyball matches to watch for in Week 7. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. One thing to note for this week, like I said, I'm going to be at the 3C2A men's volleyball matches. I'm going to be at Long Beach City and Santa Monica when Orange Coast College plays those two teams at those locations. And keep an eye out for Set Point Extra Points. I will be having a guest, most likely, so definitely keep an eye on that. But with all that being said, it's time to drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you everyone for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I definitely appreciate you. Shout out to the chat room, Adam Karnick, Jen B, Patty Bax, Ralph Cleese, Mike Pat, and Larry B for popping in. I really do appreciate it. Jen B also said, I love the team names they came up with for the Pro Volleyball Federation. I do too. I should be back next Monday for Set Point. SoCal might not happen on Friday. It might happen either on Thursday or on Saturday. Keep a sharp lookout for that. Until then, have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the volleyball action. And I will see you Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Or Thursday or Saturday. Peace!